Welcome to the show. We hope you have a blast. Thanks for making time for the Dealer Talk podcast. Another business leader, here's a penny for your thoughts. This ain't a regular conversation, baby. This that Dealer Talk. Yeah, this that Dealer Talk.
What up? Welcome to another episode of the Dealer Talk podcast. This is your host, Herb Anderson. Thank you so much for tuning in. Got another great episode lined up for today. Let's check in with my co-host, Charity Ann. What's up, Charity?
What is up?
How you doing?
Happy podcast day.
Happy podcast day. Right on. So this is episode 2. We had a great conversation with our friends Paul and Kyle for the first episode of season 7. And really excited to be here again. What's going on in your world? How are things?
Things are going well. I did my homework, checked the news, the automotive news this week again. So I have a little bit of an interesting one for you today.
Cool. Let's talk about it in a minute. We do have a great guest we're going to be talking to. Who knows where this conversation is going to go, but I'm very, very excited. And how about we kick it off with some automotive news? What's going on in the world of automotive?
Okay, so I had 3 things. I told you this one already, but between last month and this month, the average price of a vehicle went up significantly. Do you remember how much?
It was like, I don't know, $800, something like that?
$895 on average per vehicle. Between July of 2021 and July of 2022, the average price has gone up 12.7%.
Yeah, but I mean, that's to be expected, right? Demand and supply 101. I mean, no, not a shocker there. I don't know. Are we in inflation? I don't think we are. I think we're more in stagflation.
We're like dipping our toes into
well,
scary.
I mean, the thing that throws that whole metric off is employment. Like employment is solid, right? So I think I know the statistic is like, what, 2 years or 2 quarters of reverse GDP or something like that.
So I've been reading a lot about that, and this might just be like political rhetoric, the government trying to talk everybody out of it. But there's a lot of things out there right now that say that that's the layman's way of looking at it. But when it comes to the economics, it's way more complicated than that.
Yeah, no, for sure. But like, if employment is strong,
right? But employment is strong being one of them. Another one of the metrics that they look at is repossessions, and that has been going up as well.
Not surprised about that either. When you got to make that mortgage payment, all of a sudden that car note is like, I don't know, it's questionable.
I don't know. There was, I remember somebody saying once, this is not a guide for life. That's my caveat to this one. If you have to choose between your mortgage and your car payment, pay your car payment because you can live in your car. So, I mean, there's that one to look at. But that goes into my next one. Was they just released?
Wait, before you move on, I want to get your take on this because I don't agree with inflation. I think it's more stagflation when you think about it. And here's why: we're still making money, right? The money's still there. I just think that things are in excess of the income.
See, but you're getting into like economics, and that is not my strong suit.
Well, but I'm gonna go. I don't think our salaries have you can have an opinion, right? I don't think our salaries have kind of caught up to the inflation, So I guess I just answered my own question, but it's more.
No, I do not think that our salaries are caught up at all. I definitely feel like there's a tightening of my belt for sure.
So I don't know. We'll see. These are interesting times for sure. We've been through cash for clunker days. So this should be a piece of cake. Should be a walk in the park. And those days were rough, dude. I remember it was like rough. Like the dealership was bare bones. Everybody was leaving. You have maybe one salesperson there. You'd go days in some
Without
store
a
and it'd be like
yeah.
nothing. So,
I'm just gonna tell you right now, we're about to have a visitor in my bedroom. I tried to convince her to not come in with dog food, but she's at the door. So if she barks, sorry.
all right.
Okay, but next, listen.
Breaking all the
So
podcasting rules.
I know. What am I supposed to do with her? I'm just gonna have to put a bow on her and invite her to join us all the time. Market adjustments. There's some new statistics out there that just came out talking about the dissatisfaction of customers, and they're not good.
Well, yeah, of course. Who's going to be, yeah, I'm happy. I'm paying $5,000 over. No.
So it says that 80% of buyers have paid MSRP or over MSRP for their vehicles, which I kind of feel like, why did they add MSRP into that? Like, I think that probably throws everything off a little bit.
Because
But
no, you know why they put it in there is because customers aren't used to. This is one of the only industries where customers are like, know what the cost of the product is, and then they want to negotiate
Right.
down to the cost. It's ridiculous.
Well, and I mean, statistics are
The fact that that's
written for the motivation of whatever the person writing the
man.
statistic.
The fact that that's even in there, I think,
Right.
goes to show two things about this industry. Number one, we're super transparent. I mean, come on, like, really? You have to know how much it cost me? Like, who does that? You don't go to the grocery store and you're like, hey, how much did it cost you for that banana that you're selling me for $3? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then the other thing it says is exactly what I just mentioned. Like, the consumer is so used to negotiating that if they pay MSRP, it's like, oh my God, I paid all this money for this car.
Right.
Ridiculous.
But this is like the 80%. This is my baseline for my next one, which is that 27% of those people say they will never buy from that same brand again. And 23% of them said that they won't take their vehicle to service at that dealership.
I said it. It's in season 6. Go check it out. Like, dude,
yeah. And then 31% of them said that they would tell their friends not to buy from that dealer.
If you don't think, first of all, we'll cite this because I want to make sure that it's that's credible. Where'd you get this from?
The Cox Automotive, and then it was the rabbit hole from there. Like, first of all, Cox Automotive is like where everything comes from. If you're looking for statistics, anytime that you send me on find a statistic, it always goes back to Cox Automotive.
Yeah. I got to say, that was definitely one of the advantages for me working there. Like, I learned a bunch. So
yeah,
definitely.
But we can put it in the notes, the link in the notes too.
Yeah, let's make sure to cite that because I want to make sure that there's credibility to those numbers or those stats. But man, and you know what? And I'll say it again, like in the future, not too distant, maybe a year, 2 years from now, from a marketing standpoint, that's going to be gold. Because you can go on, you did it right as a dealership. You probably had market adjustment or something to the effect.
Oh yeah.
But you can go onto the market and be like, hey, were you overcharged for your car, or are you underwater because of
right?
Come here and we'll save you. And here's the beauty: they'll go there and they'll maybe shave off $1,000 or whatever off their deal, and it'll be better than what I'm saying. Like, they'll look like heroes.
Right.
Like, it's just gonna be, for those who take advantage of it, it's gonna be. If you want some ideas, give me a call. We'll put a strategy in place for you.
Okay, but I have another one. I'm switching the subject on you again because I'm trying to put it all in before our guest arrives. Okay, ready. So the other day, this is going to make him happy. Shout out to Chris. Was said to me, why do you think that some companies are highly focused on EVs and some are highly focused on hybrids? So that took me down a very interesting research path. The answer being infrastructure, right? So there's just not the infrastructure for EVs in the United States. Do you know how much not? Because I do know.
For EVs?
Mhm.
Oh, we're probably at 15%, maybe. Not even 10.
So in order to hit the goal that everybody is aiming for, the 2030 goal, they are expecting it to go from 1.5 million EVs in 2020 to 10 to 35 million by 2030. It would require 75 to 125 billion dollars of investment in the infrastructure of the power grid.
Whoa.
So, do you know how much we've spent so far?
How much?
Around 5 billion.
Whoa.
Mhm. So then we have the inflation, the IRA that just came out like the other day. You know which one that is?
No.
Anyway, it was a big thing that they just passed in Congress. And one of the things that it has in there is a tax credit for people buying EVs. But the tax credit that they have for buying EVs has so many caveats on it. You have to have, it's only a max of $7,500 in tax credits. The vehicle has to be manufactured, or the battery has to be manufactured in the United States. And the cap, for the most part, is $55,000 for that vehicle. So they're pushing for everybody to go to EVs, even though they don't have infrastructure. So I started looking, and there is Columbia University wrote an article about bi-directional electric vehicles. So there are some brands like the Nissan Leaf who they can, when they're charging the vehicle, it can pull from the vehicle as well and back into the electrical grid. And if we switched to those kinds of vehicles, then electric vehicles would they would supply more electrical power than all conventional power plants in the country.
Whoa. Wait, if we got to 30 million, or currently with the numbers that are on the road right now?
That's a good question. I didn't look that one up.
Huh.
With the way that it's going, it has the potential to be it will be more beneficial to the power grid than anybody who's freaking out that it's going to break down the power grid.
So here's the other thing that this kind of brings to thought is, if we're going to put that kind of strain, right, and we don't have the infrastructure, eventually there's going to be a tipping point where they're going to deter you from buying these cars, right? Because you know what I mean? Or it's going to get so congested at the charging stations,
right?
You know what I mean? Where it's not even going to make sense. And then are they going to start taxing you if you already have one of these cars? Like, are you going to pay more on your electric bill because they're trying to kind of slow the pace? And now you bought this car, you're probably in a situation like me where you paid more for the car than you're comfortable with or used to. And then, but it made sense because of the efficiency and the savings on the combustion side of it. But if that switches and now you're paying a premium on electricity, oh, dude, can you imagine? Like, I'd be super pissed.
Right. And then so when you even look it up, if you start Googling EVs and the infrastructure, it's like, depending on, you can get anything you want. The world's going to end because of EVs, up to it'll be really good for the grid. But the other statistic that I got that was really interesting is that on average, Drivers park their vehicles 95% of the time.
What do you mean?
On average, we only use our vehicles 5% of the time. They're parked the rest of the time.
Like just in general?
Mhm.
Yeah, of course.
It's crazy to me. That's crazy. I mean, obviously that makes sense
wait.
no, obviously it makes sense when you think about it, but it's not the kind of thing you ever thought
But
about.
so
You
it's a
spend all
shocker?
this money on something that you literally just park
No, come on.
95% of the time.
How do you not? That's why autonomy is so interesting to me, because now you can put your car to work for you. It can be an Uber generating you cash while you're at work.
Mhm.
You know,
Right. But that statistic, the 95% of the time, is in the statistic for the
but that makes sense. Like that's not.
powering the grid.
Ooh, shocker! Your car's parked most of the time. Come on now.
It's just one of those statistics that you don't look at straight on, and then when you look at it straight on, you're like, huh. Man, that makes that car payment less fun.
No, yes and no, because there's still, like, depending on like, it's still awesome to get into your car if you like it, and you know what I mean. That whole feeling of just getting into your car and driving, and you enjoy it like that. That's even if you do it for 5% of its ownership, it's
We
still
literally
pretty awesome.
buy objects for thousands and tens of thousands of dollars just to park
Well,
them.
what about your house? Maybe not now so much because there's a lot of remote work, but not in your house all day either. That's way more
That's true.
expensive than a car. So
Yep, that's true.
should be used to
True.
that one.
Yeah, sadly.
Um,
I go to work so everybody else can enjoy my
right,
my
right,
house.
right on. Um, so what about, is there anything else that you saw that was interesting to you that you wanted to mention?
I mean, I've really got interested in the EV thing. A little bit distracted with that, so I
Yeah.
spent
No, I
way
mean,
too
it's
much time
I
on
that's
that one.
those are great topics right now. You know, obviously those are one of the things that I think for sure it's happening. There's no question that
Mhm.
there's, I see it more and more. Especially now that I've made the switch myself, like I've become more aware of how many more EVs are out, just out and
Mhm.
about. But that definitely is something that is going to have an impact in the industry. There's no question about it. It's just, how fast can they create the infrastructure to support that is the big question.
Right,
So
and
that makes sense.
apparently not very fast.
Yeah.
I think that it'll take a lot more than just expecting the government to do it, you know?
Yeah, no,
You're gonna have
that's
to
got to
have
be
people hop on and commercialization.
yeah, it's got to be that's got to be a private effort with maybe some assistance from the
Mhm.
government, but that's going to
Right.
accelerate it tenfold. Anyway, so one of the other things that we said that we would talk about are our blog posts, and so I definitely wanted to mention that we'll put the blog post in the show notes. But for this week, we are talking about um, just the vendor dealership relationship. Like I, for
Mhm.
one, have seen that. I've been on both ends. I've been a vendor and implemented products at dealerships, and they always go in the negative way of things. Like you have these vendors that come in, they sell you a product, and then they have their teams come in
Yeah.
and set everything up, and they're there for a day or two, and then goodbye, Mr. Dealer, and we hope that things work out for you. And I just feel like, we got to make it clear that it's not the vendor's relationship or responsibility. I mean, excuse me, it's not the dealer's responsibility to be masters at your product. Of course, they have to learn it and adopt it, but you have to do the hand holding.
Mhm.
And that has to be a long term relationship, like that should take a month or so, and you should be out on the floor with them, especially if it's like a trade-in tool or a digital retailing tool, and you should be there holding their hand through that process to make sure that they adopt it into their day-to-day. Otherwise, they're just going to buy these things because they have the shiny object syndrome sort of a deal, but they'll never use it. And then the conversation gets weird because they're like, hey, your tool doesn't work. And you're like, well, it's because you don't use it. Right.
Well,
And they're
and the
both right.
frustration.
Right. And they're
Mhm.
both right, but it's not because of the widget, and it's not because the dealer doesn't want to do it. They obviously are betting on that product with their wallet. And I'm sure that the vendors are creating something that they feel is going to help that dealer, but it's that bridge between, hey, I purchased your product and now I use your product on a daily basis. And that needs to be a more intricate,
Oh yeah.
more I don't know if cohesive is the right word, but there has to be just more of
It's
a
got to be a stronger relationship between the
yes,
two. I
for
had
sure.
the experience last month. I had a vendor pitch their product and loved it, loved the idea, loved the concept, loved it all. I was like, game, let's sign up for this. And then I went on vacation. And while I was on vacation, they set it up. And I literally had to text them today and go, so remember when you pitched that product to me and you said that it was going to do this, 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 and this? It's not doing those things. And because I wasn't here when you integrated, you need to come back. I
Yeah.
need you guys back here, and I need you to show me how to get it to do these things that you promised it was going to do. Right. But
Yes.
it should not be I feel as if there are so many different ways that I'm pulled in any given day that the vendor should be like, hey, just checking in. I know you went on vacation. How are you doing? Do I need to come back in? Do I need to, help
Oh yeah, for
you
sure.
succeed with my product as my client? Do you need me to come back in and make sure you're succeeding?
Well, but even if they say no, you should still, I mean, unless they're like, hey, don't come to my store, I got it. Okay, then you've done your job. But they'll, because like you, for example, you're busy, you're doing your day-to-day, a vendor calls you, is like, hey, and you're busy, man, you're doing your thing. Like, like it's hard
Mhm.
for us to kind of pause in our day-to-day and be like, okay, yes, and sit there and have those conversations. Like it just needs to be,
Mhm.
that vendor needs to take the responsibility. We love taking responsibility when things are going great, right? We show up and we're like, hey man, you're kicking ass. Like, it's, and we like to tell them that it's because of our solution that they're winning. But when it's bad, then it's like,
Right.
oh, it's on you, Mr. Dealer.
Because you
And
weren't using
right,
our platform.
of
You
course.
you didn't log in.
Yeah.
And you're like, I didn't have a login. Yeah.
But we got that has to improve. That has to be better. It's going to be better for the vendor, obviously, because they're going to make their product stickier, and it's absolutely going to be a win for the dealer because they are going to be able to, move their business along with some of these tools that they're paying a lot of money for in some cases. So
Yeah.
anyway, check out our blog post. We're going to put it in the show notes so you can read the whole thing. And we're going to start our podcasts moving forward with some dialogue on some of those. So hopefully it'll be something for you to kind of check out after
Yeah.
the show.
Or if you want us to talk about a topic, especially if I get to research it, guys. I love researching. So weirdly.
Yeah, send us
Go for it.
questions too. You can go to
Trip me up.
dealertalk.io and you can submit your questions there, and we'll definitely either write a blog post about it or bring them up during the show. So anyway, without further ado, let's get our guest here. He's going to be joining us momentarily. There he is. What's
Hello.
up, Sud? How are you, man?
I'm good, man. Happy Friday. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
dude, thanks for joining us.
awesome.
So here at the Dealer Talk podcast, we like to kick things off with a recap. So tell us about you.
All right. So yeah, thanks again for having me. I'm Sud. I'm one of the co-founders of Spot.ai. Spot.ai builds an easy-to-use camera system that allows businesses, particularly in the auto space, to make better decisions and improve how they operate based on their video footage. We were founded in 2018 out of our work at Stanford, and so far over the last few years, we've sold our product to hundreds of customers. We're deployed at thousands of locations, and have thousands of users across 17 different verticals in the country.
Right on, man. So, what you went to Stanford? What did you study there?
We went to business school there and also studied engineering at the engineering school.
Oh, that's awesome, man.
And what
Very
kind of
cool.
engineering did you
Uh,
study?
the three co-founders, we all met at Stanford. One of us was studying computer science and electrical engineering. One of us was doing like a degree in environmental science, and all of us were actually in the business school program together.
Man,
badass.
that's impressive.
So it's funny. I listened to this podcast called "How I Built That" with Guy Ross from NPR.
Yeah, that's a really good
Shout
one.
out to that show. It's amazing. And a lot of these startups and stuff, it's a lot of people from Stanford, man. So maybe you guys will be on that show one day.
Hopefully, it's a great show.
Right on. So why did you choose the automotive industry? Or is this a product it's just broad and it fits, this segment? Or was it designed specifically for the industry?
It's a pretty broad product, irrespective of which vertical of business you're in, you tend to buy and install a camera system.
Right.
So we've actually sold to 17 different verticals, but we, particularly do a lot of work in the automotive industry because of some of the really useful applications that we have there. So that's definitely a focus area for us in terms of how we go to market and the features that we build for our customers.
So how did you guys stumble into the automotive industry? Did anybody have like a career there and they were like, hey, this would work great? Or you just stumbled into it?
So, our backgrounds have been primarily in traditional industrial businesses. I have a deep background in construction and logistics. One of my co-founders has a background in transportation and logistics. One has a background in manufacturing. So these are the industries that we've always wanted to focus on, right? And part of the reason why we started the company is we don't see as many Silicon Valley technology companies focusing on these industries. And then there are a lot of real people and real businesses with good business problems to solve. So we saw that as a really interesting opportunity. Particularly with automotive, actually, we found it out because a bunch of customers started coming inbound to us. And learning about the product and wanting to buy it and wanting to learn more about it. And we realized that there was a tremendous opportunity. So we sold across car dealerships, we've sold across car washes, we've sold across car repair. So the whole gamut of the automotive industry there.
Yeah, I what I find interesting, and we have a blog post about this too that we wrote during our break that talked about how hard it is to set up tech within the automotive space, and I feel that's one of the reasons why there's so many different companies. It's because there two reasons. One, I think that VCs or venture capitalists it's hard for them to invest in an industry that's 17,000 strong, right? It's not the masses. There's only like 17,000 dealerships, I think, in the US. And so your product needs to really showcase how much it's going to monetize off of that in order for it to justify. I think it was what's this name of this company that just came out and raised like $400 million or something? The guy used to work for Elon Musk.
Why can't I remember the name of that company?
Come on. I think we referenced them in that article too, but I'll think about it here in a minute. Techion.
Techion
Automotive. Dude, the fact that they were able to raise that from the gate, obviously this guy has clout, right? No question about it. But I also feel like their business model, they're going to charge dealers to death. It's the only way it makes sense, right? Hey, you want me to pull a list? It's going to be $500. You want to send an email? It's going to be $1,000. You want to, you want a record, it's going to be $100.
Now more than ever, businesses need more efficient sales. That's why thousands of dealerships trust 4eyes to help with things like automated inventory email updates and ensuring all of your leads get into the CRM. To try 4eyes for free, visit 4eyes.io/dealertalk. That's 4eyes.io/dealertalk.
It's not, because there's just not enough. There's not enough juice there. And then the other thing, and I don't know, Sud, if this is more, if you have can talk more about this, if this has been your experience. But dude, there's no open source. Like, there's no connectivity between all these companies that exist, like, to kind of plug in and build and work off each other. Did you guys run into anything like that where you were trying to connect with the company and you were like, hey, I have this idea. Can we like maybe plug in or whatever to utilize your services to enhance ours, or that wasn't something that you guys ran into?
So we've seen a couple of things. I'll talk about two things that you said, right? One is the value of like ease of use of technology, right? And I think that's actually not just true in automotive, but it's true almost everywhere, where technology, like, very often has always been hard to use, hard to set up, right? Particularly in the video surveillance business. And where we saw an opportunity for ourselves was to create a really easy to use product, which it didn't matter if you had IT expertise to be able to set it up. And if you had IT expertise, it made your job a whole lot easier. And building something that's really easy to install, where a customer gets value like right out of the gate, is something that's a core product philosophy for us. I think another thing that you spoke about, which I found interesting, is companies targeting the auto space, and is that a big market? We think it's a really interesting opportunity because there are a lot of people who have a real problem that we're trying to solve, right? And it's exactly that gap that we got interested in, which is a lot of people say, oh, this is actually not as interesting. But from our perspective, it's 17,000 businesses. If we can solve a real problem for them, it becomes a really interesting opportunity. What's key is the problem is something that we can articulate really clearly, something that people can understand, and they can understand the value of the product, so that we can actually get in touch with them and then they can buy it fast. So from our perspective, and what's interesting is that over the last few years, there's definitely been a trend in Silicon Valley around companies looking at or venture firms looking at companies in building in these spaces and investing in them.
I agree that there's been focus in the space, but it's not for dealers, it's against dealers. Like, if you're building companies that are trying to disrupt the model, then you have more venture capitalist opportunities than if you're trying to enhance the dealership community. And I think the big reason for that is because there's just, for a VC the way that works is a VC might take, let's just, for the sake of this conversation, say they take 3 projects on. And out of those 3, one's going to succeed, and those other 2, it's going to cost them millions of dollars, right? So they have to ensure that some of their projects are of mass appeal to cover for all these other failures that they're going to kind of take on along the way. And for the automotive space,
go ahead.
For the retail side of the automotive industry, that's really difficult because there's not enough juice there. There's just not for a venture capitalist to look at it and be like, what's your potential? 17,000 dealers, and what are you going to charge? $2,000 a pop? No, I'm not. No, I'm out. You know what I mean?
And that's where, and then you have to start looking at it, and you're like, well, what do they have to offer? And it's data.
But if you said, hey, we have something that's going to disrupt the dealership, and now we can go directly to the masses and have them buy the cars in this fashion or whatever, that's more appealing. Because just think about it from the private party sector. 45%, I think, is the last statistic that I saw, and I don't remember where I saw that. So, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But 45% of all transactions are happening peer to peer, right? What if and there's really no place for that to happen in a way that's seamless and easy for a consumer. So if somebody goes after that market, I think that there's going to be more opportunity or more interest from a VC standpoint than if you're like, hey, I'm just going to focus on this group of 17,000 folks and hopefully, try to get my product in there.
I think there are definitely big opportunities there where we squarely plays in the realm of how do we use technology to help people operate better?
Mhm.
And how does that become a tool that anybody can use to make better decisions?
Mhm.
And the trend that we saw in that world was video is actually 2/3 of all business data, video footage. But it's entirely unstructured and nobody had actually tapped into that. And a lot of companies, including dealerships, use business intelligence, and they actually use that 1/3 of data that they have, which is very structured, to actually make decisions. And what we saw is an opportunity for companies to actually make use of that video footage in many, many different ways, right? Uh, as a person running a dealership, you can't be everywhere at the same time, and you have a large
Right.
employee base, right? You have a large geographic base, many locations, which you can't be everywhere at the same time, and every given location is also pretty large, right? You have the sales side, you have the service side, right? There are many things going on, and then you have all these customers that are coming in and out of your dealerships. So then how do you use video footage to improve your customers experience? How do you use it to diagnose and respond to claims? How do you use it to help your salespeople sell better? How do you use it to help your service technicians repair better? So we're in the camp of how does technology augment human potential, and like how do we make it more as useful as possible to everybody in these dealerships to actually go about their day-to-day lives and their work in a better way.
I like where you're going with that, with the video portion of it, because Brad Lee, the owner of Lightspeed, always talks about how training is augmented when you stick it into technology, because now you can people can log in and they can train themselves almost on a daily basis, and they can have that repetition. I think that if I'm understanding correctly, the premise here, you can do the same thing with video, right? Because you can rewatch this, right? And you can put yourself in the state of mind, or you can see it on a daily basis. And then, hey, I saw this. This was an area of opportunity. It's almost like a self-reflection with video. Like, I was in the situation. This is what I said. This is what I did. This is how I can improve on that for the next time it happens. And then you can kind of play it out, right?
That's right. It's almost like game tape, right? And looking at that and learning from it. And so a couple of ways customers use video footage more tangibly, right? In that same vein is you have these cameras all over the shop floor, right? What they're trying to figure out is, okay, how long was a customer waiting, for a particular service, right? And can you reduce that time? What areas of the floor were customers actually spending time in? Were they looking at some like cars versus the others? And then how do you make like it be more relevant for them?
So is it proactive or reactive? So like, does it? I guess that's the only way I know how to ask that question. Do you look at the video and you go, "Hey, this customer was really pissed off, so I'm going to go back and look at the information." That would be reactive. But it sounds like what you're using is far more proactive, instead of so that you can say things like, "Hey, the customer you've got so many customers looking at this Wrangler over here. Therefore, we can make these assumptions off of that."
It's a combination of that, right? Some customers use it in a proactive way, right? Can you get an alert for somebody being where they shouldn't, right? Or for a certain number of people being in an area, right? So you now know you have a crowd. But then it's also reactive, where you're going back to the video footage and figuring out, okay, in the last few days we had the showroom laid out in this way. Did that work for us? Where were people hanging out? What were they looking at? How long did salespeople take to talk to people? Like, what salespeople were doing better than others, right? So it's a combination of those things, and it's really all about all the different ways you can make that video data useful for these customers. And different dealerships use it in different ways based on what they need.
I'm just fascinated by how you guys came up with this. Like, you were all just sitting around and you're like, "I've got an idea." Those cameras over there, like, was it a slow building idea, or how did you guys come up with it?
There were a couple of things happening around the time we came up with this idea. One is that we all had deep backgrounds in traditional and industrial businesses. So we were pretty familiar with some of the challenges that you face there, right? You can't be everywhere at the same time. You always don't have the right context to make better decisions, right?
Yeah.
Then on the other side, and this was linked to some of the technology that we were building when we were at Stanford, was we were seeing the ability of this new wave of technology called edge computing, which is the ability to crunch and analyze data without using the cloud. So today, the way the traditional model works is that you have data that kind of goes sit somewhere in Google Cloud or Amazon or Microsoft
Mhm.
Azure. Video doesn't work that way because video is so intense, right? It's like a few camera feeds can spit out a whole lot of video.
Mhm.
What we saw was the ability to very cost effectively process all that video without transferring it somewhere to the cloud. And when those two things came together, we saw that there's an opportunity to solve some of the problems that we ourselves had seen in all these different businesses, and then be able to solve them in a way that was cost effective and accessible and easy to use for customers. And that's really how that idea came together.
I don't know if this is a valid question, but is there any AI tied to that?
There is. So what we basically do is that we provide customers with a small appliance, a box. It's like a video recorder. We call it an intelligent video recorder. It plugs into the camera system they already have, and if they want cameras, we give it to them for free. And what it does is that it actually crunches and stores all the data there. And then we have these GPUs built into these boxes, which allow us to analyze the video and then run different AI models on it. And then we give customers access to that video on a very simple dashboard through a mobile app or through their browser. And then the AI features built into it basically allow them to use video for all those purposes, right? So for example, can you actually search a video by a person? Can you figure out how many people were in a particular area at a given period of time? Can you figure out if a car or a vehicle was staying idle in a particular location for more than a certain amount of time? So we have AI built in that allows all these different use cases that customers leverage to make better decisions.
So you can search a video based on a person?
Yes.
Can you search a video based on like male or female?
No, we can't search it based on the specifics of the person, but we can search video based on like, was there a person in it in that frame?
Oh, okay.
Right? Or was there a vehicle?
Because I was about to be like, whoa. Turning camera off.
Let me ask you this: Do you have dealers using it now?
Oh yeah, we have many dealers using it now actually. So we have some of the largest dealerships in the country using our product. And what you brought up there is actually a very interesting question that we get a lot, right? And it's video surveillance, right? Is it Big Brother? What the way we see it is, and we've seen this with all our customers, video surveillance is a thing. It's unhealthy when you have asymmetric access. You only have one person who has access to something. You have somebody, sitting in a high tower looking at people and figuring out what they're doing, right? But video intelligence, which is what we call it, is where everybody has access to it. What we find is that when we actually when we deploy a product into dealerships and almost any other industry, the use of the product very quickly spreads. It's no longer just the IT or the security person or the GM who has it, right? But it's the salespeople, it's the person on the shop floor, it's the person who's managing the repair center, it's the operations manager, it's the HR person. They all have video and they're collaborating it with it to then make better decisions. So it's no longer like something that only a few people have access to, but it's something that everybody has access to and uses on a day-to-day basis. In which case it becomes less Big Brother and it is more focused on the value that you can get from it.
So tell me how because you talked about sales and I can't, my mind just keeps going there because I see tons of value there, because training is one of those things that I just feel I have to admit it is getting better. I see a lot more push, but there's still some stores out there, man, that just don't invest in that at all, like zero. Give me an example of how a store can use this to train their salespeople better. And probably with your system, they would be able to do it at a significant reduction in cost, because those training programs are quite expensive. And, training is one of those things, if you're going to do it, you got to commit and you got to do it always, right? You can't just do it for 30 days and be like, okay, you're all trained, it's got to be ongoing.
Yeah, and I think there are a couple of elements to it, right? One part of it is knowing what to train people on and who to train. And very often you don't have enough context about that, right? You as a GM of a dealership, you can't be everywhere at the same time, right? You're pulled between different things. Very often you're managing multiple locations, uh, uh, and you have salespeople talking to customers, right? So how do you know? Like, can you get the visual context that you need to actually see what happened to know, okay, who do I need to train and what do I need to train them on? And that's probably the starting point for how video footage helps you, right? You have these cameras, we're able to very easily help you to uh, figure out, like, to find the right video clips, right?
Mhm.
For example, when was person A talking to a customer, right? What did that look like? How long did it take for us to, like, for him or her to talk to the customer? How long was the customer with them, right? What are the different, like, time lengths that different customer interactions have, right? Why do some interactions take longer than others, right? So the video footage and making it very easy to search video allows you to figure out those questions, which then helps you design what is your training program, who needs to be trained, right? Like you said, training programs are expensive and they're time consuming. The least thing you want to do is put your money after the places that actually move the needle, right?
Right. Yeah.
So that's the sort of starting point, right? The
Can
second piece,
you? I have another question. If you
go
were
for it.
done, can you see how many people are on the lot and how many of those people are brought into a showroom, into a building?
You can see like how many people are on a lot. You can see how many people are in a particular space. You
So
can figure out
you could be like, listen, this many people you lose because you guys are all standing around chit-chatting.
exactly, right. Are there enough people on the floor to serve the crowd, right?
Does
uh,
it count that itself, or does it just show you the opportunities and you have to like manually be like, okay, there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people in that picture?
no, you can actually get counts for, like, how many people were there at different times of the day, and know, okay, were there like is there a time in the afternoon or in the evening where you suddenly have like 10 people showing up, right? And making sure that you can then adjust your people's schedules to actually service everybody on time without it taking
Or how many
forever.
people are there when the dealership is closed?
Right. Or did people come in
That's
before
cool.
before the dealership was actually open, right? Are there
Mhm.
people moving around on the lot and then getting alerts for stuff like that? So there are all these different, use cases where customers can both proactively and reactively, like, improve their sales program on the fly.
That's kind of cool.
That is really interesting. Is there reporting that goes with that? Like, hey, this is a daily report that comes from the videos, like how many shows you had or how many ups or whatever. Like, is there like actual data that gets spit out, or this is because the other thing that I'm thinking about now, it's like it'll be super time consuming too to go in there into a video archive and try to find, you know what I mean? I mean, what there's 13, 14 working hours in a day.
No, I mean, that's a lot of what we do then, is being able to spit out that data in very, like, digestible formats, right? A big problem with video data and unstructured data like video that they've always seen is it's very hard to find anything, right? Like, very
Mhm.
often if you have to look through 13 hours of video, you have to see 13 hours of video. But
Right.
how do we make it really quick for you to get those insights from that, right?
Right.
Can you see, a very quick graph, right? This was the time where, like, for example, one thing that service centers use us for, right, at the back of the showroom, is how long did it take for a particular vehicle to get repaired. So we have this feature called idle time that allows you to figure out, okay, if there's a vehicle here, how long did it stay there? And then you can filter video by, let's say, which vehicles took more than 1 hour in the same place, right? And then now you can use that to go to that video clip, like, just in a few clicks, and then see why did it take that long, right? Could it have been done in, like, less time, right? So it's all about minimizing the time it takes to get that insight from video.
Yeah, if you can do it in digestible formats, it would be, I can see that being super valuable. I mean, just take your example of waiting. You see the customer there sitting, waiting, and then you cut to the technician moving the car, and then he parked the car there and went, had a smoke break, went and had lunch, and the car is just sitting there for an hour, and then came
And the
back
customer
and
is sitting there.
the customer is just waiting for their car, and it's like, dude, what's up, man?
In
So,
fact, one of the use cases that service managers use us for is Like once a customer comes in and parks the car in the service bay, how long did it take to actually get to the car?
Yeah.
Was it waiting there for like 1 hour? Was it waiting there for like 5 minutes? Right? And why did that happen? And then service centers are always backed up in terms of the amount of time it takes to even get appointments. And
So it shows like time management efficiency as well.
Exactly. So you can go back and say, why was a car waiting there for more than 15 minutes when somebody should have come in and picked it up and parked it in the right service bay?
Listen, I'm not trying to like expose your competition, but do you have competition for this product, or is it this just something that's exclusive to you guys?
We're extremely, like, a lot of our competition is traditional video surveillance companies that are built for. We're not built for this purpose, and that's the opportunity that we saw to be able to create this kind of product.
That was the gap in the market.
Exactly.
Wow. I've preached about video here, obviously in different context, like in the form of social media and creating content and all those things. But having that video footage and being able to digest it in little sound bites or whatever to actually be able to see what's going on in your operation from a DP or from a general manager standpoint, man, I can see that being super valuable. So I keep going back
to. I keep going back to the dealership that I work at is closed on Sundays, and it's kind of a locally known fact that people wander around the lot on Sunday to look at vehicles when there's no salespeople around. So we, and I'm going to butcher this. We used how did it work? We used cell phones to count how many people were on the lots on Sundays, but it was raw, inaccurate data. It wasn't giving us exactly what we wanted, but it gave us a lot of information that we wish we could utilize more of, because it's like, here's a number, and then that's all we got was just these numbers. And
it was a pan.
It would be nice
geofenced and people's cell phones.
It was creepy. I totally turned off my location on my cell phone.
Yeah, their locations were turned on. You can see that, but it's not accurate because that follows a customer for 30 days, and so it's not like they cross the perimeter and it's like, hey, you're here. No, it just.
But with a AI inside of a video, not only could you see how many people were there, you could see which vehicles they were wandering around while they were on the lot. And then you could like move your lot around depending on which vehicles were getting the most traffic.
That's exactly correct. And I think the other piece that's really important to highlight is privacy. And one of the core tenets of this movement of edge computing and edge computing technology is that the video actually always stays on your location. So it's all stored in a box that's sitting in your IT closet. And it's not going to a public cloud unless you want it to. So the data
it's your
is
data.
private.
It's your information.
That's exactly right. It's private by design, as we call it. So it entirely belongs to you. In fact, when we need to access your system for a support ticket that you raise, you actively have to give us access to the product.
So what's the evolution of something like this? I mean, what's the next step, the next level?
So there are different areas that we see ourselves innovating in, right? The first one that we worked on was just making sure it was very, very easy to get access to your video from any device, any location, anywhere. And typically you have these multiple different locations, all which have different camera systems. So it's a bit of a mess. So how do we unify that in one place? The second area that we are now really focusing on really deeply is how do we give you more AI and more insights from that video and allow you to leverage that video, right? For learn more things from the video. So can you detect different kinds of it started off with people and vehicles, but now it's can you detect different kinds of objects, which might be useful in different settings. Can you get deeper understanding of contextual understanding of what was going around with those objects? It started off with how long were they there, right? But then there's just so much more that we can do there. The third area that we're really focused on is how do you help people collaborate and action these insights? So instead of sending 50 emails back and forth and like sending like files on a Google Drive link or very often on a USB stick, we make that really, really simple for people to collaborate with, right? And then how can you bring a lot of collaboration that you see in social media to business video? And then how do you connect video to different systems that people might have to then help them get more value from it? Can you connect video to a point of sale system? Can you connect video to a service system? And then allow people to use that video context that they're getting more broadly. And then a deeper area that we see innovation in is how do you let people build their own applications on video? So how do we, give people really easy access to video so they can build their own new software, right? Their own AI, their own workflows on that, so that they can get even more value from it. And if you think about it, a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? And then this AI technology, even underlying it, the hardware is getting better 2 to 3x year on year. So you can expect over the next few years on all those different vectors to see a whole lot more of innovation.
Absolutely.
How long have you guys been around? You said that, I think, and
we were founded in 2018 and we started going to market in 2020.
Wow.
Very cool. I love it.
That is very cool.
There is one question that I ask everybody that comes on the show, but before I ask you that, I want to give you take 5 minutes to tell people how they can get in touch with you, where they can go to find more information about this potential solution, or just learn more about it. And if you can throw in there, if I was a general manager at a store, what would you say to me to get me to do a demo with you guys or look at your product?
Sure. So you can learn a whole lot more about us at Spot.ai. We have a website which has a bunch of different use cases that we work in, a lot of content, webinars, and product brochures around what the product actually is and how it can benefit you. And the way to simply get in touch with us is to actually click one of the free trial or book a demo buttons. We offer customer a very, very, very simple way to try out the product for free for 2 weeks, and then actually get value from it before they decide that they have to purchase. We cover shipping for the hardware both ways, so it's entirely risk-free for you. And then once you click on one of those buttons and submit your information, we'll have a sales rep getting in touch with you really, really quickly. That's the best way to get in touch with us. And
now,
I think
if I was a general manager at a store, what would you say to me to take a look at your product?
So what I tell you is we are an easy-to-use camera system that allows you to use the video footage generated at your business to improve the experience of your customers coming into your dealership, improve how your salespeople sell, improve the efficiency of your service operations, and improve the security of your business.
Right on. Well, there it is, folks. Sud, thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing that information. We're definitely going to make sure to put everything in the show notes so you guys can check out more about this system, learn more about Sud. And there is one question that I ask everybody that comes on the show, and that question is, where do you see the automotive industry headed in the next 5 years, and why?
I think a big trend that I see in the automotive industry is electrification.
Mm-hmm.
And it's honestly phenomenal to see the progress that's been made so far, and with a lot of different companies coming out with new EVs and the range of EVs significantly extending. I see that as like a new frontier for the industry that's both that has better experience for customers and is also more environmentally friendly.
Well, there you have it, folks. Sud, thanks again for joining us. Thanks to my co-host, Charity Ann, for another episode here at the Dealer Talk Podcast. We will be back with episode 3 of season 7 next week. And as usual, we'll talk later.
We only host a well-respected. The vendor LexisNexis. We don't sell digital marketing. What you do? We inspect it with our DT vendor management.
Now more than ever, businesses need more efficient sales. That's why thousands of dealerships trust 4Eyes to help with things like automated inventory email updates and ensuring all of your leads get into the CRM. To try 4Eyes for free, visit 4eyes.io/dealertalk. That's 4eyes.io/dealertalk.
Hey, the writer, if you're watching this, make sure you put some music on this.
A little bit of Monica in my life, a little bit of Erica by my side, a little bit of Rio.
We got to get going, dude.
Okay.